Hello everyone, we are here in Taiwan and this is episode 2 of the Corona Chronicles with Daniel Garlitsky.
Hello!
Yes.
And welcome back.
We're two set jazz violin.
Are we gonna get sued?
I hope not. Before we get started, as always, these are very trying times for musicians. If somehow you can help out, you can hit Daniel up for Skype lessons or FaceTime lessons on jazz violin, classical violin, or whatever. He can help you, and in fact we're going to talk a lot about that today. And as well, myself, I have my DC music school. You have links in the description, by the way. If you can help out somehow, buy some of our stuff or take lessons with them, that'd be greatly appreciated. Share this video, leave comments, like, subscribe, the bell notification, all that stuff helps. Thank you so much. So today we're going to talk about living the life. There we go. Is that right? Yeah, live the life. And we're going to talk about how Daniel learned to play jazz. And that video that you saw us playing at the beginning, the minor blues, is a little bit interesting. So just a little bit about myself. I've been playing guitar for a long time, jazz guitar, swing guitar, gypsy jazz, whatever you want to call it. But we're coming from opposite ends as far as the violin is concerned. I'm a beginner violinist, but I've played jazz pretty much all my life now. And it's something that I hear in my head. So without any technique, without ever having practiced jazz violin, I can manage to do something. And he's the opposite. He's been playing violin, classical violin at a very high level his whole life, but he has not been playing jazz for a long time. And how did we learn to play jazz? That's the question. So Daniel, why don't you tell us a little bit about your violin life? How many violins have you had?
Well, I had small violins because when you're a kid you start with a quarter and then with a half. This I don't really remember. This one I have for almost 20 years now. It was made for me by a very dear friend who passed away a few years ago now, from the city of Lyon, and yeah, I love it. It's my baby.
Yep. Can you tell us a little bit about your training, your violin training?
I come from a family of violinists, which helped from my father's side. Everyone's a violinist. His father was a violinist, his mother was a violinist, and my mom is a concert pianist. So this, I guess it's a big plus when you are to learn a musical instrument, because you are living the life, not the same life as you're living, but it's kind of something that you do and something that you hear. And I guess before even touching the violin for the first time in my life, when I was 6, I heard the music since I was born. Maybe even before I was born, I heard this music. So I requested a violin I don't remember if it was my birthday or Christmas. I remember being 6. I think it was for Christmas. When my father asked me what do you want for Christmas, I said this.
Well, obviously that means you went through the standard classical hoops.
Yeah.
You did all the standard stuff,
Yes.
etudes, the classic scales, and whatever.
Of course.
So classical violinists know all about his life, that life.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us how you got into jazz. How did that come about?
Well, first of all, I've always loved listening to jazz because it's music that also played in our houses. But when I met certain people that I will not name, but probably the tag will be somewhere here or here, I don't know where you put your tags, they invited me to jam and I just didn't know how to. Even though I loved this music, I could not play it, so I decided to learn how to play it, and I had the chance to have a 30 plus years classical violin background, so I didn't need to learn the instrument. But I needed to learn to sound correct and in style, and I needed to learn certain kind of techniques.
I think it was kind of the same with me. So you basically started by learning songs, I guess, or
By listening, by learning songs, by trying to understand what Grappelli does, because the song is one thing, but if you try to play on a violin a song like you would play it on the trumpet, or like you would sing it, it doesn't sound that well. It sounds a bit cheesy and it sounds a little bit like pop music, so you need to understand how to do it so it sounds jazzy.
yes,
And for this, I just listened to many jazz violinists.
Grappelli being one of the big ones, or
Grappelli, Eddie South, Michel Warlock, Jean-Luc Ponty, many people. And I tried to understand their language because, as you were saying in one of your videos, it's really about learning a language, and the best way to learn a language is by ear, in my opinion.
and of course I understand that you're also an arranger and a conductor, so you're well versed in harmony as well.
Yeah, well, of course, I mean, harmony is the same, whether you play jazz or classical or pop, you still have the same.
Well, I mentioned this because I've seen, well, in my experience talking to some classical violinists, many classical violinists, they don't seem to have, beyond basic harmony of what they're playing over when they're playing a piece.
It's true because it's not mandatory to learn it. I chose to audit the lessons of harmony and orchestration, and that developed my ear in a certain way, I guess, that wouldn't be developed if I didn't learn all these things.
Yeah, because last week I remember just fooling around the bar, you're playing the Mendelssohn Concerto and you were dictating the harmony, so you knew, like...
Yeah, but you have to know, because if you play only the melody and you don't know what universe you're evolving in, what's the use of playing the melody, and how could you say, I will play it this way because it sounds nice? It's not enough. It's good when it sounds nice, but it's not.
Well, the point I'm getting at is that came in very handy for jazz.
Well, of course, but...
because I think there's a lot of fear among violinists, especially classical violinists, there's a fear of harmony.
There is a fear of harmony, but as I was well versed in the harmony, I always considered myself having a harmonic ear when it came to classical music, but when it came to jazz, I needed to make some efforts in order to learn a little bit more, because in a way classical music harmonically would be maybe somehow simpler. I mean, we usually until the 20th century we only use triads. We don't use sixth chords when it comes. We use triads, dominants, and diminished chords, and we can combine them in many different ways. But to have a major 7 chord in classical music, it's a rarity, because it was kind of considered as being a mistake. So I needed to learn more chords.
But you had a solid foundation, though. That's
of course. I mean, it's at the end of the day, major 6 chord or a triad is basically the same thing as an ornament.
I don't remember if I asked this, but how long ago was it that you really started? So I'm gonna start working on jazz.
Seriously, it's been maybe a little bit less than a year where I started to dedicate my time. That's at the end of the day the amount of time that you're willing to dedicate to anything that you want to do that will make you better. Before I was just an amateur.
Amateurism, like as just listening, or did you try to do a little?
Try to play, and you play not really the right way, but you don't really care because you're kind of enjoying yourself. And when you're transitioning to being a professional, then you're trying to make the others happy as well, and you're trying to control more what you do, and to do more refined things.
And would you say for the most part you were doing this kind of on your own? Did you ever go see like an actual jazz teacher, like do this, practice this mode, this skill?
No. I listened a lot. I went to jam sessions. Not only gypsy jam sessions, but
of course. In general.
In general, jazz jam sessions. And I listened a lot. There's a beautiful feature on YouTube where you can reduce the speed to understand what the hell is going on. And funny thing, if you reduce the speed of Grappelli in his late years when he plays really fast in a bebop way, and when you listen normal speed, it's just it's like really fast and it's slurred. But if you reduce it to 50 or 25, you can hear that it's never straight. That it's a little bit with a swing rhythm.
Interesting.
And I don't think he does it on purpose. I just think that's the way he played all his life.
It's
So it's
just
kind of
natural
anchored
thing.
in his brain and his fingers.
So that is one thing that I notice of you when our common friend Duvet Dunajewski, master StarCraft player,
Check him out.
told me about you and he showed me some of your playing. I was just very impressed by your sound, by how authentic you sounded in the old style. Because he mainly listened to a lot of older players, right?
Yes.
I firmly believe that you are what you listen to. I don't know if you...
I agree. I mean, I could, in this kind of music, I think that's what I want to do. And in classical, we would a little bit beware of playing in an old style, because many people would say, you don't play like this anymore, what are you doing? And in old traditional jazz, that's what people like to hear, and they're charmed by it. And that's also what I like, of course.
For me personally, one of the biggest difficulties in teaching jazz is that I don't believe that you're supposed to teach. You can coach someone, help guide someone, because there are so many styles out there. And then, you know, you play, we were talking about yesterday about more American, we were talking about American style, modern style. It's a completely different thing. And here we are in Taiwan and Asia, where a lot of people, they go to teachers for jazz guidance, which is fine, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But I always think that you have to do a lot of work on your own.
Absolutely, and you have to also separate whether you want to learn an instrument, and I don't believe that there's jazz violin or classical violin or modern violin or romantic. You just learn the violin. And then if you want to learn a style, of course you could go to see a teacher, but you have to bring something, and you have to have an idea, because you can not just show up and say, yeah, I would like to learn jazz. Well, go listen and try to understand.
Yes.
And then you would eventually ask for an opinion, or would you do it like this or like this? But you have to have a solid opinion already, even if you're wrong. If you're wrong, you can be corrected. If you have no opinion, what can you do, you know? There's
also, we talked about the fear of harmony among violins, but even among students of jazz, I find there's often a fear of listening, of going I don't want to use the word transcribe, but like figuring out music by ear. And so they are asking, what scales should I play, which modes, which arpeggios, but I really think you should just go and listen, grab.
I mean, the point is not to know that we're playing this chord and we're playing this chord over this chord, and to have the name of the chord, or this is Dorian, this is Mixolydian. That's not the point. If you don't know the names of these modes or of these chords, it's fine. What you need is to know the feeling. I think you would agree with me.
I very much agree. And that's why I talk about the analogy between jazz language, or any style really, where there's improvisation, even Baroque, but also real language. I think it's fairly much the same thing. You have people who speak fluent French, but who've never been to school in their whole life, but they speak French. And you have people who go to school to learn French, but they never sound quite right. And I think that's kind of the same thing.
Absolutely. I think the ear is a very, very powerful tool, and some of us are luckier than the others, because it also depends on your mother tongue. If your mother tongue has many frequencies, such as Russian or Chinese. Actually, I don't know if your mother tongue is Chinese.
Not really, but that's hard. I don't know what my mother tongue is.
But if you have all these different harmonics and the sounds that you can produce, it's easier for you to learn another language, because it's the sounds that you know. On the other hand, if your first language is French, it's more difficult. But it doesn't mean impossible. It just means that you need to work more.
So let's then talk about this analogy. Of course, it's the best analogy that I can think of, but I wouldn't say that it's 100%. You can make 100% comparisons. But so I was giving a workshop last year to someone here, actually in Taiwan, but there was someone from Beijing. And after the workshop, he asked me, "Is it true that for jazz music, you have to practice 12 hours a day?" And I thought about this for a second. I said, well, actually, yes, but not what you think. It doesn't necessarily mean practicing yourself, but it's thinking about, like a language. If you want to learn a language, you have to think about it all the time. So what are you, and I mentioned that's something you did with jazz violin.
Well, I guess that's what you mean by living
the
life.
Yes.
With jazz violin and with jazz in general,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it's a little bit silly to just choose one instrument,
Yeah.
especially in jazz where you could play virtually on any instrument. It doesn't matter. You can play on the saxophone, the violin, on the guitar, on the piano.
And of course, you're talented,
Mhm.
but I think one of the key differences between players who have been, quote unquote, studying with teachers, jazz, violin, or violin, jazz in general, and you is that you're doing a lot of this work on your own. You're thinking about it all the time, listening. And we'll talk about the thinking later. Whereas they're doing another thing, and what you did, I think, is the most important thing you have to do. You have to think about all the time, and once you adopt this lifestyle, I feel that you can progress naturally, organically, without even touching your instrument, even though touching your instrument is very important.
Absolutely, but it's part of the thing, and for violinists especially, we have a tendency of just taking the violin and playing as many notes as possible, and the more you practice, the happier it makes you, because you just make 2 hours of playing on the violin. No. Again, I'm speaking about playing jazz music, not playing jazz violin or playing the violin. For violin exercises, it's different, but for this style, you have to always try at least to play with your brain.
Yes.
And the fingers will follow. Whether it's the right hand or the left hand, the fingers will always follow your brain.
So for myself, the past 3 years, actually, since March 2017, I've been practicing only violin and double bass. I pretty much stopped playing the guitar, only to teach or to do concerts if people ask me. And even without practicing the guitar, I'm still expanding my vocabulary, because I'm thinking in a certain way when I listen to music. I understand, for example, when we're playing like a major song like Dinah, and over the D7 chord, I hear like a C minor. I hear it. I don't think of the name, but I just hear, we're talking about that feeling. Is that the same for you?
It's half-half, because it's somehow also easy for me to know. It's not even in terms of chords, but in terms of degrees.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That, you always know that there's a dominant in the song. In every song, if there's a tonic, there's a dominant, right? So you know that on the dominant, especially if it leads to the tonic, because it doesn't always do that. But in this case, a minor 4 minor 4 chord would be nice. But I still need to think of it. My fingers just don't press the right buttons at the right moment quite yet, because it's also very difficult for the violin to transpose.
Yeah, of course.
And
that's
to
a
try
big
to
issue,
think
yeah.
in terms of grid as you would do it on the guitar.
Yeah, it's a very different beast. I can talk about that another time. But that's what I said. My biggest issue on the violin is obviously the violin itself. But then I hear the language in my head, and that solo that I played was something that I can manage within my technique, barely. But it's something I've almost never practiced jazz violin. I'm only practicing exercise. And so let's talk about this lifestyle. What can we do? How can we do it?
Well, we told a lot of things already. We have to listen. I guess anyone could do that. Wherever you are in the world, if you have an internet connection, you have such a huge library. This is the first step.
But then some people say they've been listening to 50 years and they still know where further.
But have they been practicing and playing it in real life? Because it's important to get out there and do something and fail and try again and fail better. But you have to go there and share this music with your friends or your colleagues. You have to jam together. Always with an open ear, because in jams you can learn so many things. Somebody plays beautifully and then you know why.
Well, if I use the language analogy, if let's say someone's learning French, and they're listening to a French chanson for 50 years, but they still don't speak French, why is that?
Well, they know this chanson very well, and they could probably reproduce it and even sing it, but maybe they don't even know
the meanings of the words.
But
so then, for music, you should somehow, not necessarily like you said in theoretical terms, but make some sort of meaning to the word, to the music. But how?
To the harmony, to the phrase. To the phrases, to the melody, harmony, and rhythm and colors. I mean, it's very personal, and it depends on each and every individual, but it's not just notes that we play at the right moment in the right rhythm. It doesn't make any sense. It's about feelings, I guess. It's the feeling that you want to provoke or to create your feeling or somebody else's feeling or the feeling of the song. Maybe you are inspired by the lyrics of the song. When you say that you play a minor 4 chord or over the dominant, it's a special feeling, right?
Yeah.
If you don't want this feeling, you wouldn't do that.
Of course.
And sometimes it also depends on your mood. But that's why it's important to try to determine what you like and what you don't, and how to do it again. And these little things that make you a musician.
Well, let's say you're listening to a recording. You hear something you like.
Yeah.
How do you process it? First of all, you're aware of what the harmony is already. Underlying harmony?
Sometimes. Underlying harmony, yes, because it depends. If I listen to more modern jazz, maybe I have to listen twice or 3 times to figure out what they're doing, but I mean, there are rules. That's why theory is also something that you should look into, because then you know the rules and then you just get the things faster. But then, if the soloist plays something weird that I like, usually I like the stuff that I don't usually do and that are a little bit weird, so I have to listen and maybe even to reduce the speed, and I said, what is he playing there? Oh, he's playing this mode or this scale or it's this feeling. I like this feeling. It's a process. I know you're very fast in learning these kind of things. I need some time to...
Well, I think the main thing is that you're processing the information, because I met some classical violinists who transcribe Grappelli solos, but who are no further ahead in improvising. In fact, they have the solo written down. They can only start it from, section A, or it cannot start from, because they're missing the chords behind already.
Usually, even classical musicians have trouble starting a piece when it's not in the beginning. Like measure 2 is a big effort. But yeah, it's the way we were trained and educated, and it doesn't mean that we are unsuccessful. It just means that we have to learn something new, and it's fun to learn new things.
So, while we're on that topic about thinking, about processing how the notes relate to something, or like harmony, for example, or the rhythm, would you do the same thing for the melody of a song? Like if you take, I don't know...
Sure, let's take the Sunshine of Your Smile. You remember just the first 3 chords or 4 chords?
Yeah, sure do.
Can we do it once in a classical way?
Okay, yeah, sure.
And you just play the strum ones, the chords, and without the rhythm, and I would play it as I would play if I was playing classical melody.
Okay.
Yeah. So you see, I play a long line, a long melodic line. There is the rhythm behind. There is just no pump. How do you say pump in English? I guess it's
straight rhythm or pulse.
There's no pulse, but there is a rhythm. Then it's just following me, and that's how you would play it in classical music. Now in jazz, it's a song that Grappelli plays. What do we do? Etc. So you could say it's the same, but it's actually not. And this is something that took me a little bit of time to hear, because when I was hearing Grappelli play it, I didn't hear that he actually did play a swing rhythm. He didn't play. He played. I don't even know if he does it on purpose.
I think he just feels it.
He just feels it, and then he also plays this kind of charming gliss between notes. Because it's charming and it's nice, and it still sounds melodic, but it's a little bit already improvised and ornamented.
So that's already a sound issue.
Yeah.
And the timing issue. And then the notes, you seem to be able to start the phrase. Let's say I start the song in the middle and anywhere. It's a bit of a confusing song, but other songs, you can already know your place. Whereas again, my experience with working with some classical musicians who had trouble, so that's because you're able to relate each phrase to the harmony. Is that it, or?
It's also this, but I mean, the song is usually 32 bars, especially the song that we're playing. So you know that it's either A or A-B-A-C, and you would usually start in one of these points. So when you know this, it's kind of, it becomes easier. And if you don't know it, then you kind of pick it up, because you also listen to the harmonies that the guitar is playing or the piano is playing, and then you figure them out.
So you're listening also to the section behind, the rhythm section.
If you especially if you don't know the song. I mean, many times you show up with a jam and they all want to play a song and you don't know it, but you say, okay, let's try it. Of course, you can. It's not the same feeling as when you know a song very well, but you can still play it if you know the chords. And again, many songs have kind of similar chords progression.
Especially in the old style.
Especially in the old style. So you can pick it up if you have enough knowledge, and I don't mean book knowledge, I mean ear knowledge. Then you will eventually pick it up. There's no other way. If you spend your time, it is bound to happen.
So if we were to sum it up, it's like to spend a lot of time, almost all the time, listening, but listening intelligently, trying to make sense, not necessarily in theoretical terms, but of what's going on, like related to a feeling or harmony. And if you do this slowly you should also learn songs. Would you agree? That's something I did.
Of course, you have to learn songs, but especially again for violinists, which are used to play the melody, don't only learn the melody, because you learn the harmonies. And I don't mean the name of the chords. Just you are supposed to. Something that I did a lot with my students in classical. I said they were playing a melody and I said, "Stop! Did you know which chord it is here? Is it this, or is it, or whatever? Can you tell me?" And many of them can't tell me, and they said, "You don't need the name, but you need to know the color. I mean, every chord is a different color in the progression of a song." So this is something that is very important to learn and to memorize. Not even if you cannot transcribe it, it's also fine. But if you memorize the feeling that it has or the color, it's good.
But that's just for a personal experience. What changed in my life was learning a bunch of songs, and eventually, because on the guitar you have to learn the chords. There's no choice.
Of course,
you want to accompany someone. And by learning about 30 songs in the old style, I started to hear the patterns. The similar patterns. You said there are a lot of similar chord progressions. Would that be something similar for you as well, and a similar experience?
Of course. I mean, when there's a 5, there's a 1, and where there's a 5-1, then there's a 2-5-1 very often, and there are rhythm changes. There's Christophe. I don't know how you call this in
I don't think
English.
Yeah.
But the point is, a song reminds you of another song, and then the melody reminds you of another melody or the improv that you have written. If you write your improvisation in the beginning, it's fine, but see whether they could apply to another song, perhaps, even if it's another key. So this is of course very
well, I think that's what I mean when I say you have to live a certain lifestyle. It's, of course, you can practice your instrument, and you should, but living the lifestyle changes everything. That's about it. Like, I know since I've been playing guitar for a very long time, I've worked out so many possibilities for finding my notes. But I noticed that when I play the violin, I hear the notes and I hear the violin lines, but since I haven't practiced the violin enough, I have trouble finding these things. But that's why sometimes I prefer to play slowly so that my brain has time to react. That's why instrumental practice is very important. But for me, and as you said for you, it's not about thinking, okay, so C major, I'm going to play Ionian or Lydian or whatever, going to this. And for me, it's because I listen to this music so much, and other styles of music as well, that when I play a chord, I hear already what I want to. Well, if I hear something, I hear these kinds of things, and that's and that's kind of like the mystery and the magic of music improvisation. Of course, all I did here, I was playing chord tones. You can describe it in theoretical terms, but that's not what I'm thinking. It's just a feeling that I have, and I play one note and it inspires the next one. And that's something similar for you as well.
Combining the knowledge that you have in order to, on the spot, being able to deliver something that is. I don't know why I don't like the word nice, because it doesn't have to be nice, but it has to be structured somehow. So of course there is this, you hear this chord and you hear different things that you could do, but you also hear the next chord, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, I mean, I have a tendency of trying to think in terms of phrases more than all licks, because licks are usually on one or two chords, but phrases are longer. And it's again the phrases that I've heard somewhere, or that I liked, or that I wrote, but it's not something that comes out of the blue. It's something that was there already, that you've played before, even if you don't remember. It's in the back of your memory, I guess.
So learn songs,
yeah.
Listen to music, and listen attentively. Try to make sense of it however you can. If you have to use theoretical words, which are useful, I'm not against theory. I love theory. In fact, I have a degree in classical theory. But I think the theory, the words, that helps communicate, because otherwise you just don't have a word for it. But make sense of what you're playing.
Well, yes, absolutely, and theory should always come after the music. The only time it came before the music, it was the second Viennese school, and that was a disaster in the beginning. Then they did a great job with it, but I mean, it's when it comes from the soul or from the heart, it's not the theory that comes out, it's the music. Then you try to explain it, and then you understand.
And I think when we say listen to music intelligently, it doesn't have to be just jazz. Any style of music, even classical. I take a lot of things from Bach, and that's one of my favorite musicians, composers. Classical music, I take so much from them, and I know exactly what's going on. If you're doing I know I can hear the harmonies too. So, and I can then use that in other style. That's beautiful. C7, F minor. You can describe it with theory if you want, but it's just also another key. If you do it in minor, say.
Sure.
So any style of music, try to think this way. Relate the notes to the harmony, and then try it in different songs. So it can be bluegrass, it can be country music, rock music, pop music, anything. So you have to listen intelligently.
And go out there and jam and live the life.
Actually, last week we had the workshops in Taiwan. We were talking about our experiences teaching, and we said similar. When we talked to each other, we said similar things to the students. And I don't remember exactly what it is, but I remember I was telling the students that these are people who had very little experience listening to jazz music, and so for me it was a little bit difficult, strange to teach, because I'm coming from the listening part, but it's something that I have to describe to them with words. So I'm telling them, okay, over A minor you can play A minor 6 arpeggio, over E7. But then I told them, I'm telling you all this from a theoretical perspective, but the most important thing is that you have to. I learned all this from listening, and you have to do the same.
Yes, I agree with that, and I mean, you were teaching mostly guitar students. I was teaching mostly violin.
I was teaching accordion.
It
was a mixed thing.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit different scenario for violins, because usually violins just want to sound jazzy. They kind of have a knowledge of their instrument. The ones that came to this workshop. But they would like to sound jazzy, so they would like to know a little bit more of the jazz technique, and we could talk about this in that video as well, on the violin jazz technique. But it, of course, will sound jazzy, but it will not sound authentic if you don't combine it with what you are talking about, which is the harmony and the rhythm.
There we go. So you gotta live the life, man. Live the life. Watch all my other videos. I talk about this a lot, and I repeat it so much, but it's worth repeating because it's something that it's a lifestyle that you have to adopt. And once you adopt this lifestyle, it's just automatic. You learn without even knowing that you're learning. That's how it is for me. That's how it probably is for you. Since you've only been doing this for a year, I can only imagine what it'll be like in 5 years. Probably overdose in an alley in Detroit. That's when you know you've made it. So thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and hit Daniel up for lessons or something.